My name is Ruby Chin, and I am 71 years old. What I will tell you today changed everything I thought I knew about my life. The day we buried my husband Marcus was the coldest winter morning I can remember. Standing there by his grave, snow falling on my black coat, I got a text from a number I had never seen. The message made my heart stop beating. "I'm not dead. That body isn't mine." I typed back with shaking fingers. "Who is this?" The answer came fast. "I can't tell you who I am. Bad people are watching. Don't believe what your daughters tell you." That message broke my world into pieces. Before we continue, first, let me thank you for watching Granny's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Agnes Moss from Bullhead City, Arizona. Thank you for being part of our family. Now, let me tell you everything. I looked across the grave at my two daughters, Lisa and Emma. They stood there crying, but something felt wrong about their tears. Lisa kept checking her phone. Emma kept looking around like she was waiting for someone. For 45 years, Marcus had been my best friend, my helper, my reason to wake up every morning. I met him when I was 26 in the small city of Millbrook. We both grew up on the same street, playing in the same park as children. I worked at the library to help my sick grandmother while Marcus fixed cars in a small garage that his uncle gave him. We had no money, but we had something better. We had real love that would last forever. I remember when he first talked to me. It was on a Wednesday afternoon. I was walking home from work wearing my old blue dress and my grandmother's shoes. He came out of his garage with oil on his hands and smiled at me with a shy look that made me love him right away. "Hello, Ruby," he said in a voice so soft I almost couldn't hear it. "Do you need me to look at your car?" I didn't have a car, but I made up a story just so I could talk to him more. That talk turned into walks in the park together, then into promises to love each other forever, and finally into a wedding with all our friends and family there cheering for us. The first years were not easy. We lived in a small apartment with thin walls. When the people next door played music, we could hear every song, but we didn't mind. Marcus worked every day in his garage from morning until night. I helped people find books at the library and taught children how to read on weekends. When Lisa was born, I thought my heart would explode with happiness. She had tiny hands like her daddy and my green eyes. 3 years later, Emma came along just as perfect. I took care of them with all my love, always putting them first before myself. Marcus was the best daddy in the world. He would take them to the lake to catch fish on Saturday mornings, show them how to fix broken toys with tools, and read them stories before bedtime every single night. I cooked their favorite meals, helped them with homework, and held them when they were scared of thunder. We were the happiest family, or that's what I believed back then. As the girls got bigger, things started to feel different. Lisa, who was older, always wanted nicer things than we could buy. She would ask why we lived in such a small place, why we didn't have fancy clothes like her friends at school. Emma always did whatever Lisa did, like she was following her big sister everywhere. When Lisa turned 20, Marcus offered her a job helping at the car garage, but she said no with a mean voice. "I don't want to get dirty like you do, Dad. I'm going to be rich and important someday." Those words hurt Marcus so much, even though he never told me. I would see him sitting outside at night, looking up at the stars with sad eyes. His daughter had said his work wasn't good enough for her. She had pushed away not just his job offer, but everything about the life he had built for our family. Time went by, and Lisa surprised everyone by getting a job at a big company in the city. She started working with people who buy and sell houses for rich folks. Emma followed her sister and got the same kind of job soon after. Both girls began making lots of money, more than Marcus and I had ever seen in our whole lives. At first, I felt so proud of them. My daughters had done what we never could. They had escaped being poor and built better lives for themselves. But slowly, that happy feeling turned into sadness. They visited us less and less. Phone calls became shorter and shorter. When they did come home, they drove expensive cars and wore fancy clothes, talking about money and business deals all the time. They would look at us with a strange mix of feeling sorry for us and being embarrassed of us. "Mom," Lisa said to me during one of their quick visits, "you and Dad should move somewhere nicer." This apartment is falling apart around you." She was right about the apartment being old. But that place held all our best memories. It was where we had raised our daughters, where we had shared thousands of meals together, where we had grown old side by side. It wasn't fancy, but it was our home where love lived. Marcus, who was always smart about people, would tell me quietly, "Ruby, money has changed our girls. We're not important to them anymore." I didn't want to believe what he said. I kept making excuses for why they never called, why their visits were so short, why they broke their promises to spend holidays with us. "They're just busy building their careers," I would tell myself over and over. "Someday they'll remember how much we love them and come back to being the sweet girls we raised." But deep in my heart, I knew Marcus was right about everything. We had lost our daughters long before I would lose my husband. I just didn't know how completely they had become strangers to us. The biggest change came when Lisa married a rich man named David Richardson. David was from the wealthy part of town and never tried to hide that he thought our simple life was beneath him. The first time Lisa brought him to meet us, he came wearing a suit that cost more than we spent on food in 3 months and shoes that were shinier than anything we owned. "Nice to meet you," he said with a fake smile, barely shaking our hands for 1 second. His eyes looked around our small apartment like he was disgusted by everything he saw. During dinner, David hardly touched the food I had spent all day cooking with love. He pushed the meatballs around on his plate and took tiny bites of the vegetables, but ate almost nothing at all. Lisa seemed nervous and kept saying sorry for things she had never been ashamed of before. "Next time we'll meet at a restaurant instead," she whispered to David, thinking I couldn't hear her. But I heard every word, and each one felt like a knife cutting my heart. Emma stayed single, but she acted the same cold way as her sister. Her visits happened only on birthdays and Christmas, and even then she always seemed ready to leave as soon as she arrived. She was always looking at her phone, making business calls, even when we were trying to have family conversations. "Mom, I have to go now," she would always say before it was time to leave. "I have an important meeting first thing tomorrow morning." Our Sunday family dinners became something we only remembered from the past. Christmas mornings became cold and awkward. My daughters would bring expensive gifts we didn't need or want. They would stay for 2 hours and then rush away like they couldn't wait to escape from us. Marcus and I grew old together, taking care of each other while our daughters lived their busy lives far away from us. He kept working at his garage, but his hands weren't as strong as they used to be. I kept working at the library, but my eyes couldn't read the small words as well anymore. We lived on the little money we made, too proud to ask our rich daughters for help with anything. "You know what makes me the saddest, Ruby?" Marcus said to me one evening as we drank tea on our tiny balcony. "It's not that they have money now. It's that having money made them think we don't matter anymore." He was right, like he always was. My daughters hadn't just changed on the outside with their fancy clothes and cars. They had changed on the inside, in their hearts. We weren't their beloved parents anymore. We were an uncomfortable reminder of a past they wanted to forget completely. Things got much worse when Lisa bought a huge house that cost $300,000 in the richest neighborhood in the city. Emma did the same thing soon after, buying a fancy apartment that cost $200,000 with a view of the lake. Suddenly, my daughters owned things worth more money than Marcus, and I could even imagine in our wildest dreams. "You should sell this old apartment and move into a place for old people," David suggested during one of his rare visits with Lisa. "There are some very nice retirement homes for people your age. You'd have nurses and activities to keep you busy." A retirement home. After 40 years of building our life in that apartment, after raising these daughters with so much love and sacrifice, they wanted to put us away in a home for old people. "We don't need a retirement home," Marcus replied with the dignity that always made me proud of him. "We're perfectly fine here in our own place." But I saw the look that passed between Lisa and Emma. They both thought David's idea was good. To them, we were a problem that needed to be solved in the easiest way possible. That's when the pushing started getting stronger. Lisa came over one day with papers in her hand, documents she had prepared without asking us what we wanted. "Dad, Mom," she said with that fake smile she had learned from David. I've been thinking about your future plans. This apartment is worth maybe $50,000 at most. If you sell it, I can add some money so you can move somewhere much better. To us, there was no place better than the home where we had been happy for so many years. But Lisa didn't understand that feeling at all. For her, everything was about numbers and money and what things were worth. Also, she continued like she had already decided everything. I think Dad should stop working at the garage. He's 75 years old now. It's time for him to retire and rest. Marcus looked at her with such sadness in his old eyes. Daughter, working isn't something I have to do anymore. It's what keeps me feeling alive and useful every day. But you could get hurt badly, Emma said, supporting her sister like she always did. At your age, even a small accident could be very dangerous. Their words sounded like they cared about us, but I could feel something else hiding behind them. There was impatience and urgency that I couldn't understand completely. The next few months were filled with tension and arguments. My daughters increased the pressure on us to sell our apartment. They brought real estate people to look at it without telling us they were coming. They had it valued by experts without asking our permission first. They even started talking about what would be best for everyone in the family. Listen, Lisa said to us during one particularly uncomfortable dinner at a fancy restaurant. David and I have decided to start having children soon. We're going to need help with all the expenses that come with babies. If you sell the apartment and move to a smaller place, that money could be like an early inheritance for us. An early inheritance. She was asking for the money we would leave them after we died, but she wanted it while we were still alive. The boldness of asking for such a thing left me speechless and shocked. Daughter, when your mother and I pass away, everything we have will belong to you and Emma, Marcus said calmly, though I could see his jaw muscles tighten with anger. But while we're still living and breathing, our decisions about our lives are ours to make. Don't be so stubborn about everything, Emma cut in with a harshness I had never heard from her before. You're both old now. You can't keep holding on to the past like this forever. That night, after they left us sitting there, Marcus and I talked until the sun came up. For the first time in our marriage, we discussed the scary possibility that our daughters were not the people we thought we had raised with love and good values. Something's very wrong, Ruby, my husband said to me with worry in his eyes that I had never seen before. This isn't just them being impatient or wanting money. There's something darker and more dangerous behind all this pressure they're putting on us. I had no idea how completely right his words were. I couldn't imagine that my own daughters were planning something that would change our lives in the most terrible way possible. I didn't know that the tragedy coming toward us wouldn't be an accident or bad luck, but a conspiracy carefully planned by the two people I trusted most in the entire world. The last normal conversation I had with Lisa was 4 weeks before Marcus died. She came alone without David and looked more serious than I had seen her in years. Mom, she said, sitting at our kitchen table where she had eaten breakfast so many times as a little girl. I want you to know that no matter what happens in the future, Emma and I will always take care of you. Her words made me feel better at the time, but now thinking about them beside Marcus's grave, they make me shiver with fear. Why did she say no matter what happens? What did she know that I didn't know? The accident that destroyed everything happened on a Thursday morning. Marcus had left early for his garage, like he had done every day for more than 45 years. I was in the kitchen making his favorite lunch, chicken soup and fresh bread, when the phone rang with a sound that sent chills through my whole body. Mrs. Chen? A voice I didn't recognize asked. I'm calling from City General Hospital. Your husband has been in a very serious accident.
You need to come here right now.
The words became blurry in my mind, like letters written in water. The world stopped spinning. My legs became weak like jelly, and I had to hold onto the counter to keep from falling down. What happened to him? Is he going to be okay? Is he still alive? Ma'am, please come to the hospital as fast as you can, was all they would tell me. The trip to the hospital felt like a nightmare that wouldn't end. My neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, had to drive me because I was shaking too much to hold the car keys steady. The whole way there, my mind refused to accept what might be happening. Marcus was careful and safe in everything he did. How could something terrible have happened to him? When we got to the hospital, Lisa and Emma were already there waiting. That surprised me because nobody had called them yet, at least not me. But in my panic and fear, I didn't think about that strange detail very much. Mom, Lisa said, hugging me tighter than she had in years. Dad is in really bad shape. The doctors say there was an explosion at his garage. He has terrible burns on his body, and his brain got hurt very badly. Emma's eyes were red from crying, but something about her face felt wrong. She seemed more nervous and worried than truly sad, like someone waiting for important news instead of someone crying for her father.
Can we see him?
I asked, desperate to be with my husband. Only immediate family members, one person at a time, for 5 minutes maximum, the nurse explained to us. When I walked into that intensive care room, my heart broke into a million pieces. Marcus was connected to dozens of machines with bandages covering most of his face and arms. I could barely recognize the man I had loved for 45 years. His breathing was weak and artificial, kept going by machines that made beeping sounds constantly. I walked up to his bed and took his hand, the only part of his body that looked normal. Marcus, my love, I'm here with you. Everything is going to be fine. You're going to get better, just like you always do when you're sick. For just a moment, I felt a tiny squeeze from his hand. His eyes moved behind his closed eyelids. He was fighting to live. My brave husband was fighting with all his strength to come back to me. The next 4 days were the longest and hardest of my entire life. I practically lived at the hospital, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs in the waiting room. Lisa and Emma took turns staying with me, but they always seemed more interested in talking to doctors than in comforting their dying father. I heard pieces of conversations that confused me at the time. Emma asked detailed questions about medical insurance and how much the treatment would cost. Lisa was on her phone talking about life insurance policies and who would get the money. Mom, Lisa said to me on the 3rd day, we looked over Dad's insurance papers. He has a life insurance policy worth $75,000. There's also a workplace accident policy that could pay us up to $100,000 more. Why was she talking to me about money when Marcus was fighting for his life? Why was she worried about insurance payments instead of her father getting better? I don't care about any money, I answered angrily. I just want your daddy to recover and come home. Of course, Mom, she said quickly, but I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes that scared me. On the 5th day, the doctors gave us news that shattered my world completely. Dr. Martinez, a kind older woman with gentle eyes, brought us into a small private office. Mrs. Chun, she began softly, your husband's condition is extremely critical. The burns have become infected, and the brain damage is much worse than we first thought. We have to be honest about his chances of survival. What does that mean exactly? I asked, though my heart already knew the terrible answer. It means we need to prepare ourselves for the worst possible outcome. Your husband is in a medical coma. We could keep him alive with machines for months or years, but his quality of life, well, it's very unlikely he will ever wake up or recognize anyone again. My whole world fell apart in that small room. 45 years of marriage, an entire lifetime built together with love and dreams. And now they were telling me it was all ending like smoke disappearing in the wind. We want to try everything possible, I said through my tears and sobs. No matter how much it costs, no matter how long it takes, please don't give up on him. But Lisa and Emma looked at each other in a way that made me feel sick to my stomach. Mom, Lisa said in a voice that tried to sound understanding and caring. We have to be realistic about this situation. Dad would never want to live like a vegetable. He always said he never wanted to be a burden on anyone. A burden? I exploded with anger I didn't know I had inside me. He's your father, not a burden. He's the man who raised you both, who worked his whole life to give you everything he could. We know that, Mom, Emma said quickly. But we also have to think about you and your future. The medical bills are going to be enormous. They could use up all your savings and leave you with nothing. Again with the money talk, always the money. My husband was dying and they were calculating costs like he was a broken car that wasn't worth fixing. That night, alone in Marcus's hospital room, I held his hand and talked to him like he could hear every word. My darling, I don't know what to do anymore. The doctors say there's no hope left, but I can't let you go. I can't imagine living in this world without you by my side. It was then that something happened that still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. His fingers moved just a little bit, squeezing mine with a pressure that was almost too light to feel. His lips moved like he was trying to tell me something important, but no sound came out of his mouth. I called for the nurses immediately, desperate for help.
He's responding to me. He's trying to talk to me.
But by the time they came running, Marcus had returned to his still, quiet state. The nurse checked all the monitors and shook her head sadly. Sometimes there are muscle spasms that happen automatically, ma'am. It doesn't mean he's conscious or aware. But I knew what I had felt. Marcus had tried to communicate something important to me. He had fought through the coma to tell me something I needed to know. 3 days later, in the early morning hours of Monday, the machine alarms started going off loudly. Red lights flashed everywhere. Nurses and doctors rushed into Marcus's room like an emergency. I was dozing in the hallway chair when all the noise woke me up. No, 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 I screamed, running toward his room as fast as I could. The medical team worked for 50 minutes trying to bring him back to life, but it was no use. At 5:23 in the morning, Marcus was officially declared dead. The pain I felt in that moment was like someone had reached into my chest and ripped my heart out with their bare hands. I collapsed beside his bed, hugging his still warm body, refusing to believe that he was gone from me forever. Lisa and Emma arrived at the hospital 1 hour after their father's death. They seemed prepared for the news, like they had been expecting the phone call. They brought folders full of papers, documents, and phone numbers for funeral homes. We already contacted Peaceful Rest Funeral Home, Lisa told me while I was still crying uncontrollably over Marcus's body. They can pick up Dad this morning and start the arrangements. We also called the insurance company, Emma added matter-of-factly. The claim process is already started and should be finished soon. How could they be so organized, so prepared, so emotionless just 1 hour after losing their father? Something felt terribly wrong about their behavior. But my grief was so intense and overwhelming that I couldn't think clearly about anything. The funeral was scheduled for the following Friday. Lisa took care of all the arrangements without really asking me what I wanted. She chose the cheapest coffin available, the shortest possible service, like she wanted to get everything over with as quickly as possible. It's what Dad would have wanted, she said when I complained about not being included in the decisions. Something simple and quick without making a big fuss over everything. But Marcus deserved so much better than this unseemly rush to bury him and forget he ever existed. The day of the funeral arrived gray and rainy, like the sky itself was crying for my beloved husband. I wore my only black dress, the same one I had worn to my grandmother's funeral years before. My hands were shaking so badly that Mrs. Garcia had to help me with the small buttons down the back. "Be strong, Ruby," my dear friend whispered as she carefully fixed my hair. "Marcus would want to see you being strong and brave." But I didn't feel strong at all. I felt completely empty, like a shell with nothing inside. 45 years of marriage can't be buried and forgotten so easily. Every single thing in our apartment reminded me of him. His coffee cup still on the table, his work tools on the balcony, his pillow that still smelled like the shampoo he used. When we arrived at the cemetery, I was shocked by how few people came to say goodbye. I expected to see more of Marcus's customers from the garage, more neighbors from our building, more friends from over the years. But it was only Lisa, Emma, David, Mrs. Garcia, myself, and the pastor. For a man who had lived 75 years in the same city, who had helped so many people fix their cars, the funeral seemed strangely empty and sad. "Where are the guys Marcus worked with?" I asked Lisa. "We didn't want to bother people unnecessarily," she replied quickly. Dad was a private person who would have preferred something small and intimate. But that wasn't true at all. Marcus loved his community and cared about his neighbors. He would have wanted them all to come and remember him with stories and laughter. Why had Lisa decided to make everything so secretive and rushed? During the service, I watched my daughters with new eyes that saw things differently. Lisa had a serious expression that seemed appropriate for the sad occasion, but her eyes kept looking at her expensive watch. Emma seemed restless and fidgety, like she had more important places to be. David was checking his phone messages behind his black funeral program. This was how they were saying goodbye to their father, with impatience, distractions, and fake emotions. The pastor spoke about eternal life and peaceful rest, and being reunited with God in heaven. His words felt empty and meaningless in my broken heart. I didn't want Marcus to rest peacefully somewhere else. I wanted him to come home with me, for us to keep growing old together, for us to keep drinking tea on the balcony every evening until we were both 100 years old. When it was time to throw dirt on the coffin, my legs refused to hold me up anymore. Mrs. Garcia had to support me as I sobbed uncontrollably. The sound of dirt hitting the wooden box was final and hopeless. It was at that exact moment, standing beside my husband's grave in the falling rain, that my phone buzzed with a text message. A message from a phone number I had never seen before. I'm not dead. That body isn't mine. My heart stopped beating for a second. The letters seemed to dance and blur in front of my eyes like I was having a hallucination. I was losing my mind from grief and sadness. With hands that wouldn't stop shaking, I typed back, "Who is this?" The answer came back immediately. "I can't tell you who I am. Bad people are watching us. Don't believe what your daughters tell you." The phone almost fell from my trembling hands like it was on fire. Mrs. Garcia started to bend down to pick it up for me, but I stopped her quickly. I couldn't let anyone else see those mysterious messages. Not until I understood what was happening and who was sending them. "Are you feeling all right, Mom?" Lisa asked, walking over to me with a worried expression on her face. I stared at her, trying to find some clue or sign in her features. Her eyes seemed sincere and caring, but now every gesture, every word, every look felt suspicious and dangerous. "I'm fine," I lied, putting the phone deep in my purse. "I just need to go home and rest." On the way back to my apartment, I couldn't get those strange messages out of my head. Was it possible that someone was playing a cruel joke on me at the worst moment of my entire life? Or was there really a chance that Marcus was somehow still alive? But if he was alive, who had we just buried in that expensive coffin? And if he wasn't alive, who knew enough details about our family to write something so specific about not trusting my daughters? That night, alone in my apartment that now felt like a tomb full of memories, I went through every detail of the last few days. Marcus's accident had been strange from the very beginning. According to Lisa, there had been an explosion at his garage, but Marcus knew every tool and machine in that place like they were his children. He was careful about safety and maintenance, almost obsessive about checking everything twice. Plus, how had my daughters gotten to the hospital so quickly if nobody had called them before me? The hospital had called me first. I was listed as the emergency contact on all his papers. How did they know about the accident before I did? And then there was all the talk about money and insurance. From the very first day, Lisa and Emma had discussed insurance policies and beneficiaries like they had been waiting and preparing for this moment their whole lives. I decided to look through Marcus's important papers. In his old wooden desk, he kept all his documents in a metal safety box. Insurance policies, the deed to our apartment, garage business papers, everything was organized there. I found the $75,000 life insurance policy that Lisa had mentioned to me. But there was something I didn't remember seeing before. The policy had been updated just 8 months earlier, increasing the coverage from $25,000 to $75,000. Why had Marcus increased his life insurance so dramatically? He had never mentioned that change to me, and more importantly, who had suggested that he needed more coverage. I kept searching and found something even more disturbing and suspicious. A workplace accident policy that I didn't know existed, purchased only 4 months before his death. $100,000 in case of accidental death while working. $175,000 total. A fortune for a family like ours, but also a fortune tempting enough for someone without morals or conscience. My phone buzzed again with another message from the same unknown number. "Check the bank accounts. Look at who has been taking money out." This time I didn't hesitate or doubt. This person, whoever they were, knew too much to be just someone playing pranks. They knew about the insurance policies. They knew about my daughter's behavior. They knew details that only someone very close to our family could possibly know. I decided I had to find out the truth. The next day, I went to the bank where Marcus and I had kept our accounts for 35 years. Mr. Williams, the manager who had known us since we were young, greeted me with genuine sadness and sympathy. "Ruby, I'm so very sorry about Marcus. He was one of the good ones in this world." "Thank you, Mr. Williams. I came to check our account statements. I need to understand our financial situation now that I'm alone." He showed me the bank records from the past 8 months. What I saw made my blood turn to ice water. Over the past 5 months, large amounts of money had been withdrawn from our savings account. $2,000 in April, $4,500 in May, $6,000 in June, $3,500 in July. Money that I knew nothing about being moved without my knowledge or permission. "Who authorized these withdrawals?" I asked, my voice shaking with fear and anger. "Your husband came in personally each time," Mr. Williams explained. "He said he needed the money for major repairs and improvements at his garage. But I managed all our household finances. I knew exactly how much money we had and what we spent it on." Marcus had never mentioned expensive repairs or improvements at the garage, and we definitely had never discussed withdrawing thousands of dollars from our life savings. "Do you have the signature cards for those withdrawals?" I asked him. He showed me the receipts and forms. Yes, it looked like Marcus's signature, but something about the handwriting seemed wrong and different. It was too shaky and uncertain for his usually clear, steady script that I knew so well. "Mr. Williams," I asked with my heart pounding hard, "did he come alone to make these withdrawals, or was someone else with him?" He thought for a moment, looking through his notes. "Now that you mention it, I believe he came with one of your daughters a couple of times. Lisa, I think her name was. She said she was helping her father with the paperwork because his eyesight was getting worse without his reading glasses." Lisa. My own daughter had been involved in money withdrawals that I knew nothing about, using her father's aging eyes as an excuse. But Marcus could see perfectly fine with his glasses on, which he wore every single day from morning until night. That afternoon, as I sat at my kitchen table staring at the bank receipts over and over again, I received another text message. The insurance increases were their idea. They convinced Marcus he needed more protection for you. It was all part of their plan. I could no longer deny or ignore the evidence that was piling up in front of me like puzzle pieces forming a horrible picture. The mysteriously increased insurance policies that Marcus never told me about. The unauthorized money withdrawals with Lisa's help. Her suspicious efficiency in organizing a cheap, quick funeral. Her coldness during her father's final days in the hospital. But the question that terrified me most was this: if they had really planned Marcus's death, how had they done it? And who was sending me these messages that seemed to know everything? How did this mysterious person know so much about what had happened to my family? The following days became a nightmare of doubt, suspicion, and fear. Every one of Lisa's smiles, every one of Emma's hugs, every word of sympathy and condolence felt like a mask hiding something evil and dangerous. But I needed more proof before I could accept a truth as horrible as the one taking shape in my mind. My phone kept receiving messages from the mysterious number. "Go to Marcus's garage. Look in his office desk. There are things hidden that you never saw." I decided to visit the garage for the first time since the accident happened. Lisa had told me there was an explosion that hurt Marcus badly. But when I got there, I found something completely different from what I expected to see. The garage was strangely clean and organized, too clean to have been the scene of a dangerous explosion. There were no burn marks on the walls, no broken glass or pieces of metal scattered around, no signs of the destruction that such a serious accident should have left behind. Where was the machine that exploded? I asked myself out loud. I looked at every piece of equipment in the garage and found all the machines in their proper places, working perfectly fine. The welding torch, the air compressor, the hydraulic lift, everything was intact and undamaged. What then had really been the cause of Marcus's injuries? In his office desk, I found something that sent shivers down my spine. A note written in his careful handwriting, dated 1 week before his death. "Lisa keeps insisting I need more insurance coverage. She says it's to protect Ruby better. But something feels wrong about her pushiness. I don't trust what she's really planning. Below that note was another one from 3 days later. Emma brought me some complicated papers to sign today. She says they're to modernize the garage business, but I don't understand what any of it means. Why are both girls in such a hurry about everything? My husband had been suspicious of our daughter's motives. He had sensed their evil intentions, but he had died before he could warn me about what was coming. I kept searching through his desk and found an envelope with my name written on it in Marcus's handwriting. I opened it with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. It was a letter addressed to me. My dearest Ruby, if you are reading this letter, it means something terrible has happened to me. In recent weeks, I've noticed strange changes in Lisa and Emma's behavior. They're too interested in our money, in the insurance policies, in pressuring us to sell our apartment. David is putting enormous pressure on Lisa to find money quickly. Yesterday, Lisa told me I should be more worried about my safety because at my age, any small accident could be fatal. I don't know why, but those words sounded like a threat to me. I love you more than life itself, Ruby. If something happens to me, please don't trust anyone blindly, not even our own daughters. The letter fell from my shaking hands onto the dusty floor. Marcus had predicted his own death. He had seen the warning signs that I, blinded by a mother's love and trust, had completely ignored. That evening, Lisa came to visit me at home. She arrived carrying a bottle of expensive wine and wearing a smile that now seemed completely fake and rehearsed. "Mom, I've been thinking carefully about your future," she said, pouring herself a large glass without asking if I wanted any. "The insurance money from Dad's policies is being processed right now. It should be $175,000 total." "How do you know the exact amount?" I asked, pretending to be innocent and curious. "Well, I helped Dad with all the insurance paperwork over the past few months. He wanted to make sure you would have enough money to live comfortably after he was gone." A complete lie. Her eyes lit up with a greedy sparkle that made me feel sick to my stomach. "You could buy a smaller, more manageable apartment or, even better, move into one of those nice assisted living communities where you'd have company and medical care available. Emma and I could help manage your money to make it grow and last longer." "Manage my money for me? We just want to take care of you properly, Mom. At your age, it's easy for older people to get confused or tricked by scammers. We understand business and investments. We could double or triple that money in just a few years." "Double my money or steal every penny for themselves." "Let me think about all of this for a while," I said, trying to buy myself more time to figure out what to do. "Of course, take your time," David said with his practiced fake kindness. "But don't wait too long to decide. For your own financial security." After they left my apartment, I sat in my kitchen shaking with rage and terror. My own daughters, my flesh and blood, had not only arranged their father's murder, but now they were planning to steal everything I had left in the world. That night, my phone buzzed with a longer message than any of the others. "Tomorrow morning, go to the police station. Ask to see the official report about Marcus's accident. There are contradictions and lies you need to discover." The next day, I walked to the local police station with determination. Officer Rodriguez, who had known Marcus for many years, greeted me with genuine kindness and sympathy. "The report about your husband's accident?" he asked with a confused expression on his face. "What accident are you talking about, Mrs. Chun?" "The explosion at his garage. When the machine blew up and hurt him so badly." Officer Rodriguez checked through all his files and reports, then shook his head slowly. "We don't have any report of an explosion at Marcus's garage here in our records. In fact, we don't have any report at all of a workplace accident involving your husband." I felt the ground sway and move under my feet like an earthquake. "But my daughter told everyone it was an accident at his garage. That's why he ended up in the hospital fighting for his life." "Mrs. Chun, your husband arrived at the hospital last Monday morning, but not from any kind of workplace accident. According to the medical report that I have here in front of me, he arrived unconscious with symptoms that looked like severe poisoning." Poisoning. The word hit me like a lightning bolt. The doctors found dangerous levels of antifreeze in his blood, a quantity large enough to cause blindness, brain damage, and eventually death. The hospital should have told you about this poisoning right away. It hadn't been an explosion at all. It hadn't been any kind of accident. Someone had deliberately poisoned my beloved husband with antifreeze, which is sweet-tasting and hard to detect when mixed with other liquids. Why didn't anyone tell me the truth about this? I asked, my voice breaking with emotion. The immediate family members who signed the hospital paperwork requested that all medical information be kept confidential to protect privacy. They said you were too emotionally fragile to handle the technical details of his condition. The immediate family, Lisa and Emma, had hidden the real cause of Marcus's condition from me. They had invented the story about the garage explosion and manipulated everyone, including me, to cover up a cold-blooded murder. Mrs. Chun, Officer Rodriguez continued gently, if you suspect foul play in the circumstances of your husband's death, we can open a formal criminal investigation. I had more than just suspicions. I was completely certain that my own daughters had murdered their father for insurance money. That same afternoon, Emma came to visit me with a bouquet of flowers and the same fake, practiced smile as her sister. How are you holding up, Mom? You look tired and stressed. I'm managing fine, I lied, watching her every movement and gesture with new eyes. I'm just thinking about what the future holds for me. That's good to hear. Lisa and I have been talking about your situation. We think you should sell this apartment as soon as possible while the housing market is still strong. Why the sudden rush and urgency? Well, older apartments like this one lose value very quickly, and you need cash flow for living expenses. Funeral costs, outstanding medical bills from Dad's hospital stay. More lies and deceptions. The funeral had been cheap and basic, almost insultingly simple, and there were no outstanding medical bills because our insurance had covered everything completely. Emma, I said, looking directly into her eyes. You both knew your father didn't die from any workplace accident. For just a split second, I saw panic and fear flash across her face, but she recovered quickly and put her mask back on.
What are you talking about, Mom?
That doesn't make any sense. I went to the police station today. There's no official report of any explosion at your father's garage anywhere. This time, the panic was much more obvious and harder to hide. Mom, you really shouldn't be doing things like that. The police will just confuse you with technical details. The grief is affecting your thinking and judgment. Is the grief affecting my thinking, or have you been lying to me about everything? She stood up quickly, accidentally knocking over the coffee cup I had filled for her. I think you need to rest and calm down. We can talk about this when you're feeling more stable. She left in a hurry, but not before making a phone call from outside my door. I couldn't hear the exact words, but the tone was urgent and worried. She was warning someone about what I had discovered. That night, I received the most shocking message yet from my mysterious contact. They're both coming to see you together tomorrow. They're going to try to convince you that you're losing your mind, that grief is making you imagine things that aren't real. Don't believe anything they say, and don't eat or drink anything they bring you. The prediction came true exactly as the message had warned me it would. The next day, Lisa and Emma arrived together at my apartment, accompanied by David. They had expressions of exaggerated concern and worry, plus a bag of pastries from the expensive bakery downtown. Mom, we're extremely worried about you, Lisa began in a voice dripping with fake sweetness. The neighbors have been telling us you've been acting very strange lately. Mrs. Garcia says you've been talking to yourself and that you're not eating properly. Mrs. Garcia had never said anything like that to anyone. It was just another lie in their growing collection of deceptions. David brought your favorite cream-filled pastries, Emma added, pointing to the fancy bag. And we made that special coffee blend that you like so much. I remembered the warning message clearly. Don't eat or drink anything they bring you. It was possible they were planning to poison me too, just like they had done to Marcus. Thank you, but I already ate breakfast, I said firmly, keeping my distance from them. But Mom, David insisted with a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. You need to eat properly to keep your strength up. You've lost a lot of weight since Dad Marcus passed away. I'm perfectly fine, I repeated with determination. Lisa and Emma exchanged that same meaningful look they had shared at the hospital when the doctor told us about Marcus's hopeless prognosis. Mom, Lisa said, moving closer to me on the couch. We want to discuss something very important with you. Emma and I have been consulting with medical professionals about your recent behavior and mental state. My behavior and mental state?
Yes.
The strange questions you've been asking around town, the visits to the police station, the obsession with irrelevant details about Dad's death. It's completely normal after such a devastating loss, but it can become dangerous if it's not treated properly. Emma nodded gravely, like she was very concerned. We spoke with Dr. Patterson at the medical center. He says it's very common for elderly people to develop paranoia and confusion after losing a life partner, especially women your age. Paranoia and confusion. They were accusing me of being mentally ill for uncovering their lies and discovering the truth. I am not paranoid or confused, I said with all the strength and dignity I could gather. I'm simply asking questions that I should have asked from the very beginning. What kinds of questions? Lisa challenged me directly. Like why there's no police report for your father's supposed workplace accident? Like why his garage is completely undamaged if there was really an explosion? Like why you helped him withdraw $16,000 from our savings account without telling me anything about it. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. All three of them exchanged looks of barely concealed panic and guilt. Mom, Emma finally said after a long pause, those things all have perfectly reasonable explanations. Dad withdrew that money to pay for secret repairs and improvements he wanted to make to the apartment as a surprise gift for your upcoming birthday. What surprise repairs? He had hired some workers to fix the leaking roof and repaint all the walls. Lisa added to the lie. He wanted everything to be perfect as a surprise for your 72nd birthday party. If that story were true, where were these workers? Where were the building materials and paint? Why hadn't anyone else in our apartment building seen or heard about this supposed construction project? And regarding the police report, Lisa continued desperately. Not every workplace accident requires an official report, especially when it happens on private property, like Dad's garage. More lies piled on top of lies. Officer Rodriguez had been very clear and specific about the requirements. Any workplace accident with serious injuries requires a detailed official report. Mom, David interrupted with his condescending voice, we just want to take excellent care of you during this difficult time. That's why we think it would be best if you move to a place with specialized medical attention and trained staff. A nursing home. A memory care facility, Lisa corrected with fake gentleness, for people who are going through complicated grief and adjustment issues. They have psychiatrists, registered nurses, and activities to keep your mind occupied and healthy. And in the meantime, Emma added smoothly, we can take care of selling the apartment, managing all the insurance money, and handling all those complicated financial matters that you shouldn't have to worry about in your current mental state. There it was, laid out completely. Their entire evil plan. Declare me mentally incompetent and unstable, put me away in a nursing home, and take control of all my money and property. First, they had murdered Marcus for his insurance money, and now they wanted to steal everything from me too. And what happens if I refuse to go along with this plan? I asked them directly. Why would you refuse our help? Lisa asked with a smile that sent chills down my spine. We only want what's absolutely best for you. Because this is my home. This is where I built my entire life with Marcus. This is where I raised both of you with love and sacrifice. Mom, Emma said with an exaggerated sigh of frustration. You can't live in the past forever. Dad is gone now. You have to accept that reality and move forward with your life. I have accepted Marcus's death, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give away my life and all my money to you. The masks of fake concern began to slip and crack on my daughter's faces. Lisa got up abruptly from her chair. All right then. If you won't listen to reason and accept our help voluntarily, we'll have to take more serious legal measures. What exactly does that mean? It means we can start a legal process to have you declared mentally incompetent and unable to make decisions for yourself. We have witnesses who will testify about your erratic and paranoid behavior. We have medical testimony from doctors who confirm that you're suffering from severe grief-induced mental problems. What doctors? I hadn't spoken to any medical professionals about my mental health or emotional state. Dr. Patterson already signed a preliminary evaluation report, Emma added coldly. He says that based on our detailed descriptions of your behavior, it's very likely that you need immediate professional care in a supervised setting. A doctor who had never examined me, never spoken to me, never even met me, had signed an official report about my mental condition based only on lies that my daughters had told him. How much money had it cost them to buy that fraudulent medical evaluation? So you have two choices, Lisa continued with ice in her voice. You can cooperate with us voluntarily and make this transition easy for everyone. Or we can do this through the legal system, which will be much more unpleasant in public, but either way, you're going to get the professional help that you clearly need. It was a direct and undeniable threat. If I didn't hand over my money willingly, they would use the court system to steal it from me legally. I need some time to think about everything you've told me, I said, desperately trying to buy more time. Of course, take some time, David said with his practiced false kindness. But don't take too much time to make your decision. For your own safety and well-being. After they left my apartment, I sat in my kitchen trembling with rage, fear, and disbelief. My own daughters, the babies I had nursed and raised with endless love, had not only murdered their father in cold blood, but now they were systematically planning to steal everything I had left in this world. That night, my phone buzzed with a message much longer than all the previous ones. Ruby, this is Detective Frank Morrison, retired. Marcus hired me 6 weeks before his death because he was deeply suspicious of Lisa and Emma's behavior and motives. They poisoned him with antifreeze mixed into his morning coffee over several days. I have audio recordings of their conversations where they planned everything in detail. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, go to Murphy's Diner on Main Street. Sit at the corner booth in the back. I'll be there waiting for you with all the evidence you need. Finally, I would learn who had been sending me those life-saving messages. More importantly, I would have the concrete proof I needed to get justice for Marcus's murder. But I also knew that time was running out quickly. Lisa and Emma had shown me their true faces and revealed their evil plans. If I didn't act fast and decisively, I would end up locked away in a nursing home while they spent the blood money that had cost Marcus's life. The war for truth and justice had officially begun. Even though I was just one 71-year-old woman against two ruthless killers, I had something they didn't have. I had the truth on my side. And the truth, no matter how long it takes, always finds a way to come to light. That night, for the first time since Marcus's death, I smiled a real smile. I knew my beloved husband had not died for nothing. His caution, his instincts, his smart decision to hire a private detective was going to allow me to get the justice he deserved. Lisa and Emma had seriously underestimated their mother's strength and determination. They were about to learn that a woman fighting for the memory of her murdered husband is a force more powerful than all their greed and evil combined. The next day arrived filled with nervous energy and anticipation. I dressed carefully in my best navy blue dress, the one I wore for special occasions. If I was going to meet the man who could give me all the answers I desperately needed, I wanted to be prepared for whatever shocking revelations were coming. At 1:30 in the afternoon, I walked toward Murphy's Diner with determined but cautious steps. Every shadow seemed suspicious and threatening. Every person on the street could be a spy sent by my daughters to watch my movements. The paranoia they had accused me of was starting to feel completely justified. The diner was moderately busy with the usual lunch crowd. I went directly to the corner booth in the back as instructed. I ordered a cup of chamomile tea and waited nervously, my hands trembling slightly on the worn formica table. At exactly 2 o'clock, a man in his early 60s approached my table. He was average height with gray hair, intelligent eyes, and a serious but kind expression. He was carrying a thick manila folder under his arm. "Mrs. Chin?" he asked in a low, careful voice. I nodded, still not trusting myself to speak out loud. "I'm Detective Frank Morrison. I'm so very sorry for your tremendous loss. Marcus was a genuinely good man who didn't deserve what happened to him. He sat down across from me and placed the folder on the table between us. Before I show you what I have in here, I need you to understand that what you're about to hear and see is going to be extremely painful and disturbing. Are you prepared for that? I've been preparing myself ever since I got your first message. I replied with a strength I didn't know I still had inside me. Detective Morrison opened the folder and took out a small digital voice recorder. Marcus came to see me 7 weeks ago at my office. He was very worried about his daughter's recent behavior and their sudden interest in his finances. He hired me to investigate them secretly and discreetly. He pressed the play button, and Marcus's familiar, beloved voice filled the small space between us. Frank, I need you to know that if anything bad happens to me, it won't be an accident or natural causes. Lisa and Emma have been pressuring me relentlessly to increase my life insurance coverage. 2 days ago, Emma brought me a stack of papers she claimed were to improve my garage business, but when I read them carefully, I realized they were actually forms that would benefit her and Lisa financially if something happened to me. My heart raced as I heard my husband's voice again. It was like having him back with me for a few precious minutes, but his words confirmed my worst fears and suspicions. The recording continued with Marcus's voice. Lisa has been asking very strange questions about my daily routine lately. What I eat for breakfast, what time I leave for work, whether Ruby comes to the garage with me during the day. She says it's because she cares about my safety, but something about the way she asks these questions makes me very uncomfortable. Detective Morrison paused the recording and looked at me with sympathy. This conversation was recorded 5 weeks before his death, but I have something much more recent and damaging. He played another recording, this time with Lisa's voice clearly audible in the background, talking on her cell phone. No, we can't wait any longer than planned. The old man is getting suspicious about everything. Yesterday, he asked me directly why I was so interested in his insurance policies. Yes, I already bought the antifreeze from 3 different stores, so nobody would remember me. It works perfectly because the symptoms look exactly like a heart attack or stroke at his age. No, Mom won't be a problem at all. After Dad dies, she'll be so devastated and confused that we can do whatever we want with her money. Tears started pouring down my cheeks uncontrollably. It was my daughter's voice, my own flesh and blood, coldly planning her father's brutal murder for money. There's even more, Detective Morrison said gently. This recording is from 2 days before Marcus's death. A new recording began, this time with Emma's voice talking to someone on the phone. Everything is ready and set up perfectly. Tomorrow morning, Lisa is going to put the antifreeze in Dad's coffee when he's not looking. We told him it was a special vitamin supplement that his doctor recommended for his heart. The stupid old fool is going to drink it without suspecting anything is wrong. The symptoms will start with dizziness and confusion, then he'll lose his vision, have convulsions, and slip into a coma. The doctors will assume it's a stroke or heart attack. By the time they figure out it's actually poisoning, it will be way too late to save him. My entire world collapsed completely in that moment. Not only had they planned Marcus's murder with calculating precision, but they had executed it with a coldness that absolutely terrified me. How is it possible that my daughters, the babies I had held and comforted, the children I had sung to sleep, were capable of something so monstrous and evil? How did you manage to get these recordings? I asked through my sobs and tears. Marcus asked me to install listening devices in your apartment and his garage office, Detective Morrison explained patiently. He was afraid for both of your safety, but he didn't know exactly what the threat was or when it might come. We placed tiny microphones on the home phone and in a few other strategic locations around her apartment. He took out a series of photographs from the folder. I also have these pictures. Lisa purchasing antifreeze at a hardware store 2 towns away. She paid with cash and gave a fake name, but I followed her and documented everything with my camera. The photographs clearly showed Lisa leaving a store with a small bottle in her hands. The date stamp on the photos was 1 week before Marcus's death. And here are Lisa and Emma's financial records from the past 8 months, Detective Morrison continued, showing me more documents. They've both been spending far more money than their jobs could possibly justify. Lisa owes $85,000 to a predatory lending company in the city. Emma has gambling debts totaling $55,000 to some very dangerous people. They were both desperate for money and saw Marcus as their solution. Everything started to make perfect sense now. It wasn't just greed that had motivated Marcus's murder. It was financial desperation and panic. My daughters were in serious debt to dangerous people and saw their father's life insurance as quick, easy money to save themselves. "Why didn't you go directly to the police immediately after Marcus died?" I asked him. "Because Lisa and Emma are smarter than they appear," Detective Morrison replied. "They bribed the doctor who treated Marcus at the hospital to falsify the official cause of death on his medical records. Instead of antifreeze poisoning, the death certificate lists heart failure due to complications from a workplace accident that never actually happened. Without that crucial medical evidence, my audio recordings might not be enough for a criminal conviction in court. But now we have everything together," I said, feeling a mixture of grief and fierce determination. "Exactly right. And there's one more thing you absolutely need to know about your daughter's plans." My blood turned to ice water in my veins. "What else?" "Your daughters were planning to murder you next, after they got Marcus's insurance money." Detective Morrison played one final recording, this time with both Lisa and Emma's voices together in conversation. "Once we collect Dad's insurance money, we need to get rid of Mom too," Lisa's voice said clearly. "We can't risk her becoming suspicious or having other people put ideas in her head about what really happened." "How would we do that?" Emma asked her sister. "The same method we used with Dad, but this time we can make it look like dying from depression. A lonely widow who couldn't bear to live without her beloved husband. Nobody would question that explanation at all, and since we're her only living relatives and heirs, everything would belong to us. The house, the savings accounts, the insurance money, almost $300,000 total." The recording stopped, and silence filled the diner booth. I was shaking uncontrollably from shock and horror. My daughters had not only murdered their father with poison, but they were actively planning to murder me as well. All for money. All for their debts and their greed. "Mrs. Chun," Detective Morrison said gently, "I know this is absolutely devastating news, but we now have enough solid evidence to make sure they pay for their crimes. What do we do from here?" I asked, wiping away my tears with determination. "First, we go directly to the police with all this evidence immediately. Chief Williams is an honest man who isn't involved in any corruption. Second, we need to act very quickly. Your daughters are planning to have you declared mentally incompetent tomorrow morning. If they succeed with that legal maneuver, it will be much more difficult to proceed with criminal charges." "Tomorrow morning?" "Yes, I intercepted a phone conversation earlier today. They have a meeting scheduled with Judge Harrison at 9 a.m. to start the mental incompetency proceedings against you." I stood up from the table with a determination I hadn't felt in weeks. "Then we need to act tonight, before they can destroy any more evidence." "Exactly," Detective Morrison agreed. "But first, there's one more crucial thing I want to show you." He took out one final photograph from the folder. 3 days before he died, Marcus went to get a complete medical examination at the city medical center. The results show that he was in excellent health for his age. No signs of heart disease, normal blood pressure, perfect kidney and liver function. This medical report definitively proves that his death was caused by deliberate poisoning, not by any natural health problems or workplace accident. That was the final piece of evidence we needed to ensure justice. Marcus had been a healthy, vibrant man who was murdered by his own daughters for insurance money. "Detective Morrison," I said, taking his weathered hand in mine, "thank you for keeping your promise to my husband. Now, let's make sure we get the justice he deserves." That same evening, Detective Morrison and I went straight to the police station. Chief Williams was working late, which was perfect for our situation. When we walked in, it was 7 p.m. and the station was quiet. Chief Williams, I said in the strongest voice I could manage, I need to file formal charges for the first-degree murder of my husband, Marcus Chin. The chief looked at me with surprise and concern. Murder, Mrs. Chin? The death certificate says he died from heart complications after a workplace accident. The death certificate is completely false and fraudulent, I replied, placing Detective Morrison's thick folder on his desk. My husband was deliberately poisoned with antifreeze by our own daughters for his life insurance money. For the next 3 hours, Detective Morrison and I presented every piece of evidence we had collected. The audio recordings of Lisa and Emma planning the murder, the photographs of Lisa buying antifreeze, the bank records showing the suspicious withdrawals, Marcus's medical records proving his perfect health, and finally, the recorded conversations where they confessed to both their father's murder and their plans to kill me next. Chief Williams listened to each recording with an increasingly serious and angry expression on his face. When we finished presenting everything, he leaned back in his chair and shook his head in complete disbelief. This is absolutely monstrous, he said quietly. Are you completely sure you want to go through with this, Mrs. Chin? Once we arrest your daughters for murder, there will be no turning back. Chief Williams, I replied with all the dignity and strength I could find, those women murdered my husband in cold blood for money. They were planning to murder me next. They are no longer my daughters in any way that matters. They are dangerous criminals who must pay for their terrible crimes. We'll need the medical examiner to exhume Marcus's body to confirm the presence of antifreeze in his system, the chief explained. Are you prepared for that process? Do whatever is necessary to get justice, I replied without any hesitation whatsoever. Chief Williams immediately called the district attorney despite the late hour. The seriousness of the case led the DA to come to the station personally to review all our evidence. After examining every recording, photograph, and document, he immediately authorized arrest warrants for both Lisa and Emma. We'll execute the arrests at dawn tomorrow, the DA explained to us. We need to make sure we have all the evidence properly documented before they can destroy anything else or flee. Detective Morrison walked me home that night, staying alert for any signs of danger. Are you sure you'll be safe alone tonight? He asked with genuine concern. I'll be perfectly fine, I replied with confidence. After everything I discovered, I'm no longer afraid of anything. I have justice and truth on my side. I couldn't sleep that night, but it wasn't because of fear or worry. I stayed awake sitting in the kitchen, looking at all the photographs of Marcus that we had hung on the walls over the years. For the first time since his death, I didn't feel only crushing sadness and grief. I felt a strange mixture of sorrow and satisfaction, knowing that justice for his murder was finally coming. At 5:30 in the morning, my phone rang with an urgent sound that made my heart jump. It was Lisa's voice, sounding panicked and desperate. Mom, you need to come to Emma's apartment right away. Something terrible has happened to her. What's wrong with Emma? I asked, pretending to be worried and concerned. It's better if I explain everything when you get here. Please hurry up and come as fast as you can. I knew it was a trap designed to get me alone with them. After hearing all the recordings the night before, I knew they were planning to move up their schedule to eliminate me. I'm getting dressed right now, I lied convincingly. Instead of going to Emma's apartment, I stayed safely in my kitchen and waited. At 6:45 in the morning, I watched from my window as several police cars headed toward both of my daughters' homes in different directions. My phone rang constantly for the next 2 hours. First Lisa calling, then Emma, both with increasingly frantic and desperate voices, asking where I was and why I wasn't answering my door. But I didn't answer any of their calls. I just waited for the justice that Marcus deserved. At 8:15 a.m., Chief Williams knocked on my apartment door. Mrs. Chun, we have successfully arrested both Lisa and Emma. They are in police custody right now, charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. I felt my legs become weak, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from pure relief and vindication. How did they react when you arrested them? I asked him. Lisa denied everything at first, but when we played the recordings for her in the interrogation room, she broke down completely and confessed. Emma tried to run away through her back window. We had to chase her for 4 blocks before we caught her. That afternoon, David came to see me at my apartment. He arrived crying and begging, completely different from the cold, arrogant man I had known. Mrs. Chun, please, you have to drop all the charges against Lisa. She's not an evil person. She was just desperate because of all the debt and pressure I put on her to find money. This is my fault too. I pressured her constantly to solve our financial problems. I looked at him without any trace of sympathy or forgiveness. David, your wife poisoned my husband with antifreeze. She was planning to murder me next. There is no excuse or justification for that kind of evil. But we're all family here, he screamed in complete desperation. Think about what this is going to do to our family's reputation. The family died the day you decided to murder Marcus for insurance money, I replied with ice in my voice. Now please leave my home and never come back. 4 days later, the exhumation of Marcus's body was carried out by the medical examiner's office. The laboratory results confirmed exactly what Detective Morrison had discovered through his investigation. Lethal levels of antifreeze in Marcus's system, enough to cause all the symptoms he had experienced before his death. The case became front-page news throughout the entire region. No one could believe that 2 daughters had murdered their own father for insurance money. The local newspapers called it the most shocking family crime in decades. Over the following weeks, more disturbing details came to light during the police investigation. Lisa really did owe $85,000 to illegal loan sharks who had started threatening her with violence. Emma had lost $55,000 in underground gambling operations and was also facing serious threats from dangerous people. They had seen Marcus's life insurance money as their only way to save themselves from financial ruin. But their greed had led them to increase the insurance policies so dramatically that it had aroused their own father's suspicions. We also discovered that the doctor who had falsified Marcus's death certificate had received $8,000 in cash from Lisa. Dr. Peterson was arrested for obstruction of justice and falsifying official government documents. Detective Morrison explained to me all the details of the plan that Marcus had put in place with him. Your husband was much smarter than his daughters realized, he told me with admiration. He knew something dangerous was coming, but he didn't know exactly what form it would take. He hired me not only to investigate Lisa and Emma secretly, but also to protect you if anything happened to him. Did Marcus know they were planning to kill him? I asked Detective Morrison. Not the specific details, he replied honestly. But he strongly suspected his life was in danger. That's why we installed all the recording equipment. That's why we documented everything so carefully. He wanted to make absolutely sure that if something happened to him, the complete truth would come to light and justice would be served. My Marcus, even in his final weeks, had been protecting me and planning for my safety. He had anticipated our daughter's betrayal and had taken steps to ensure that justice would eventually prevail. The trial was scheduled to begin in 3 months. Both Lisa and Emma faced charges of first-degree murder, which in our state carried a minimum sentence of 30 years to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The day of the trial finally arrived after months of intense legal preparation. The courtroom was packed to capacity. Reporters from newspapers and television stations had come from 3 different states to cover what was already being called the trial of the decade. The entire city was there. Neighbors, people who had known Marcus for years, even strangers who wanted to witness this historic moment of justice being served. I wore my best black dress with pearl earrings that Marcus had given me for our 25th wedding anniversary. Detective Morrison sat beside me throughout the entire proceedings. His presence gave me the courage and strength to face what would be the most difficult day of my life. Lisa and Emma entered the courtroom in handcuffs and orange prison uniforms. Seeing my daughters dressed like common criminals broke what was left of my heart, but I no longer felt any pity for them. I only felt deep sadness for the moral death they had chosen long before they physically murdered their father. The prosecutor presented our case with devastating precision and clarity. One by one, every audio recording was played for the jury to hear. The silence in the courtroom was complete and absolute every time Lisa and Emma's voices were heard coldly planning Marcus's murder. When the prosecutor played the recording where they discussed killing me too, several people in the audience gasped in horror and shock. One elderly woman got up and left the courtroom in tears. I couldn't blame her reaction. It was difficult for anyone to process such calculated cruelty and evil. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the prosecutor said during his powerful opening statement, "this is not just another case of family greed or financial desperation. This is a case of cold, calculated, premeditated murder where two women decided to kill the father who had raised them with love and sacrifice simply because they needed money to pay off their gambling debts and bad loans." Lisa and Emma's defense lawyers tried desperately to present a case based on extreme circumstances and outside pressure, but the evidence against them was absolutely overwhelming. The audio recordings didn't lie. The bank documents didn't lie. The forensic evidence of antifreeze poisoning in Marcus's body didn't lie. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the witness stand with trembling legs but a clear mind and strong heart. I had been waiting for this moment for many months. "Mrs. Chun," the prosecutor asked me gently, "can you tell the jury what your relationship was like with your daughters before your husband's murder?" "I thought I had a wonderful, loving relationship with them both," I replied, looking directly at Lisa and Emma in their defendant chairs. "I raised them with endless love and devotion. I sacrificed everything for their happiness and success. Their father worked from sunrise to sunset every day to give them the best life we could afford. I never could have imagined that our love and sacrifice would become the motive for his cold-blooded murder. At any point during the months before Marcus's death, did you suspect that your daughters might harm him?" "No, never. That is the most heartbreaking part of this entire tragedy. I trusted them with my whole heart. When they told me Marcus had died in an accident at his garage, I believed every word. When they organized his funeral so quickly, I thought they were being efficient in their grief. I never imagined they were covering up a carefully planned murder." Lisa kept her head down during my entire testimony, unable to look at me. Emma stared at me with defiant eyes, but I could see tears starting to form. Too late for tears now. Too late for any regret or remorse. The most dramatic and emotional moment of the entire trial came when the prosecutor played the complete audio recording of Lisa and Emma planning my murder. Lisa's voice filled the courtroom clearly. "Once we collect Dad's insurance money, we need to get rid of Mom too. We can't risk her becoming suspicious or having people put ideas in her head." A wave of shocked murmurs and gasps swept through the packed courtroom. Several people turned to look at me with expression. 8 months after the trial, I received a letter in the mail from the state prison. It was from Lisa, written in her familiar handwriting. "Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I regret everything we did. The money, the debts, the desperation, they blinded us completely. We lost all our humanity and destroyed the most loving family in the world for $175,000 that we didn't even get to spend. Tomorrow, I am going to end my life in my prison cell. I can't live with what Emma and I did to the best father and mother in the world. Please tell Dad that we're sorry we were such terrible daughters who brought shame to his memory." I tried to call the prison immediately, but I was too late. Lisa was found dead in her cell the next morning. Emma, when she learned about her sister's suicide, had a complete mental breakdown and was transferred to the prison's psychiatric ward. Today, 3 years after the trial that changed everything, I live quietly and peacefully in my small apartment. I have converted Marcus's old garage into a beautiful memorial garden where I grow flowers to take to his grave every Sunday without fail. Detective Morrison has become a dear friend, visiting me regularly to make sure I'm doing well and to share stories about his other cases. Sometimes neighbors ask me if I miss my daughters or feel guilty about what happened to them. The answer is complicated but clear. I miss the innocent children they once were, but those children died long before Marcus did. The women they became were not my daughters anymore. They were strangers who shared my blood but not my heart or values. I have learned that true family is not defined by genetics or blood relations, but by love, loyalty, respect, and mutual care. Marcus was my real family for 45 beautiful years. The friends who supported me during the trial are my family now. Justice did not bring Marcus back to me, but it gave me the peace I needed to continue living. And on quiet evenings, when I sit on my small balcony where we used to drink tea together and watch the sunset, I swear I can feel his presence beside me, proud that I was strong enough to do the right thing, even when it meant losing my daughters forever. My story became bigger than just a personal family tragedy. It became a symbol that justice is possible, even when it comes from the most unexpected places. Did you enjoy my story? Which city are you listening from? Let's connect in the comments. If you love the story, you can support Granny's voice by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing you more incredible true stories. Thank you for your amazing support. I look forward to reading your thoughts. See you in the next story.